You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode.
Before we get started on this episode, here's a not-so-short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster nor the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak to a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's mold education courses, such as Mold 101 and the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit, by going to cnccontractorservices.com. Again, check out his mold education courses at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. We have my wife, Cassandra. We're in the thick of fall.
Yes, we are.
So holidays are going to be coming up.
The year just flew by.
It does. I'm sure for most of our listeners, they're like, wow, I didn't get half the stuff done I wanted to this year.
Exactly.
Well, that's how I feel. So today's topic is an interesting one. I see all sorts of stuff, obviously, on Facebook, and DIYers wanting to know how to do mold remediation. One of the biggest topics that always gets brought up is negative air for toxic mold removal.
Yes.
So when you hear that, what does that mean?
Well, I was going to ask you, why has that become such a catchphrase? I noticed that some of the Facebook mold groups you're in and so many quote-unquote mold experts, or even just people who are getting mold remediation done, it seems like it's a buzzword that lots of people are using.
Well, it's just, I want to be careful how I say this, but Facebook is full of experts that aren't experts. And I think a lot of people are trying to help others, but there's a lot of know-it-alls or think they know it all. And
well, I would say that Facebook has become the new Cracker Jack box. You remember how how as kids they would say, "Where do you get your advice from?" Out of a Cracker Jack box.
Yeah. And I mean, for our listeners that are probably in their 20s, they're like, "What are Cracker Jacks?" But anyhow, that's funny you brought that up. So the reason I think that I see it a lot is, and it's a good thing, I think most of the listeners would probably agree with this, but people on Facebook know, like, when you hire professionals, hopefully they know what they're doing. And part of mold remediation, and to me it's one of the most important parts, is negative air.
And why would you say it's one of the most important parts?
Because so obviously, air pressures in a home, we've talked about this before, but air pressures in a home, they change 7 to 10 times in 1 hour.
Wow.
So it's changing all the time. If you have let's just say a home with 2 occupants, the air pressures are probably not going to fluctuate as much. But let's just, like, I have, growing up, there were 7 of us, 4 siblings, and then my parents. So can you imagine that many people opening windows, coming in and out of doors, coming in and out of a bathroom, that many people moving around? Can you imagine what that does to the air pressure?
No.
It's always fluctuating.
Exactly.
We talked about in the last episode the UV light, but you know how when you have a flashlight or any sort of light and you can kind of see the particles in the air?
Yes.
That's without, like, it reminds me of a vacuum salesman. That's what they kind of show you. They get their little black light out and show you that to try to sell you a vacuum. Can you imagine what's in the air when we're doing mold remediation?
Lots of stuff.
And if we're not controlling that airflow, what do you think happens with all the mold and mycotoxins?
It's going everywhere in the house.
Exactly.
So is negative air the control of the airflow? What is negative air?
I wouldn't say it's the control, but it is a method of controlling it. You can have negative air without air scrubbers.
So negative air means
You're just pulling, like I'm not going to give the true definition, but you're pulling air from one space to another.
So that
we don't let all the mold and mycotoxins float throughout the home.
Oh, okay. So you're
think of a lab, like
you're containing where the mold and mycotoxins are using the negative air.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're inside of a containment.
Yes. So you create negative air by putting up containments.
You have to have containments. Well, you don't have to. If you have a big enough air scrubber or negative air machine, you don't have to. But I don't know how you would really control everything. But we put up containment. So it's a controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about negative air, we're pulling the air from inside of our containment and we're dumping it outside. That's a crucial part of it too.
Okay, so the negative is the fact that the air inside the containment
is being pulled away
out, which is negative. It's minus.
Yeah. So when I explain the air pressures changing, they can go from neutral. So neutral would be nothing's happening. Negative would mean, so if you're standing in the room, it's pulling everything out of there. And then positive would be like you're in a bubble and it keeps everything from coming in. Does that make sense?
So
if we were running positive air in a containment, it would be very difficult, but we would be preventing any air from anywhere else outside of the containment from coming in.
Okay.
Like we're getting way down a rabbit hole.
Well, and the reason why I ask it is because I've seen people on Facebook say things like, somebody's doing mold remediation on my home and they're not even using negative air. Should I be worried?
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to understand as a lay person, well, what's the deal with that?
Well, the concern is so I want to be clear with our listeners. We're creating negative air because we're actually doing things to the, I'm not sure, environment, meaning we're exposing mold.
Mm-hmm.
And with mold, typically mycotoxins, we don't want that to go through other areas throughout the home.
And contaminate other areas in the home.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, our containments, it's not just plastic sheeting we put up. Depending on the situation, and our listeners know this, every situation's unique and different, but we're sealing off like the registers for the HVAC unit. If there's a fireplace or TVs or furniture, which we don't like to have inside of our containments, like we're taking steps to protect those things, like covering those or doing whatever. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
So the purpose of the negative air is to prevent cross-contamination. Now, for those that are like, well, if there was already a mold problem, mycotoxins, because of what I just explained earlier, aren't the mold and mycotoxins spread throughout the home? Well, yeah, you could naturally assume that. But on the other hand, the walls weren't cut into.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there could be cross-contamination already, and that's why we do SPCs, but before we did mitigation, the walls weren't being cut into.
Absolutely. So then is there a difference between the concept of negative air and using air scrubbers?
Well, so that's where it gets interesting. Most people, you've seen it in the solicitations for federal projects.
Mm-hmm.
They like to use the term, and it's an acronym, NAM, negative air machine.
Okay.
An air scrubber doubles as a negative air machine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's the same piece of equipment that we use.
Okay.
Now, if we were on huge projects, like let's just say it was a huge asbestos project and our air scrubbers weren't large enough for it, we could get negative air machines that all it's doing is just pulling the air.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
But what we do, to explain to our listeners, we're using air scrubbers as negative air machines.
Okay.
And what that means is we're ducting it to the exterior.
Okay.
But on top of that, our air scrubbers have a 3-stage filtration system on it. So for those that, walk by a window and they see our duct from our air scrubber sitting there, if they're like, well, aren't you just taking all of this contaminated air from inside your containment and putting it out here?
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does.
It's cleaning the air as it's doing it.
Okay.
So it is somewhat air scrubbing, but we're using it for negative air.
Okay.
When we're actually air scrubbing, we take off the duct, the exhaust duct from the air scrubber, and just set the machine in the middle of the room.
Okay.
So it's just it's an air purifier.
It's recirculating the air that's in there.
Right.
Okay.
It brings up an important thing. Like when we're doing mold remediation, depending on how sealed up the room is and the containment is, we have to have supply air.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. If we don't have enough supply air, it's literally, depending on how high we have the CFMs on our machines turned up, it would suck like even our containment plastic. It'd pull it right down.
Wow.
You know, as professionals, and this is where it's very important. I want our listeners to understand this. This is why it's so important to hire the proper professionals. Because if you were to ask just a general contractor about negative air and air scrubbing, they probably wouldn't know what you're talking about.
It's true.
Now, if you talk to a contractor about supply air, they understand that. Because like the hood that's above your stove, it has to pull the air from somewhere.
Exactly.
Otherwise, like it's just, I mean, at certain pressures, it would be catastrophic what it would do. But my point is as remediators, like we know what to do if we don't have enough supply air. Like we can put air filters inside, like literally in our containment wall.
Wow.
That's sucking air through it.
Wow. So what do you think? I mean, just somebody listening to this and they're debating on, do they need to get mold remediation done? What is the most important thing from this episode that you think they need to know?
Well, they need to have a contractor that understands and performs remediation to IICRC S520 standards,
which would include negative air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If they don't understand negative air and air scrubbing or what the difference is, or if they can be used with the same machine, you're probably not hiring the right company.
Okay, so what's your call to action for them?
Well, we went over the fall checklist, but we were talking about negative air, but go around and check, especially when it's windy outside. Go around your windows and check for drafts.
Okay.
Because that can, once again, those drafts can really impact the quality of the air inside the home.
All right.
And most of our listeners will be like, well, it's outside air. Well, that's not really the concern. We're going to talk about condensation here, I don't know, next month. But if you have drafts around your windows, it could cause condensation when it gets really cold out, and that'll lead to mold.
Yes, it will.
All right. We would we say we switched our email list?
I would say we have a lot of things that you can sign up for and get for free. We have the higher...
Oh, no, I was going to talk about we switched from one platform to the other.
Oh, well, their experience is the same.
Oh,
so
I didn't know
literally, we've done some enhancements to our email list, but if you are not on the email list, then this is your sign to get on the email list.
Oh, okay.
So if you go to cnccontractorservices.com, you can sign up for the mold investigation checklist or the mold fact sheet or how to hire the right mold pro. I even think we have one on a mold journal as a freebie.
Yeah, but I think on the website they can get it, but I think we were testing that out on my most recent book, which was still a couple of years ago. I think we only put that link in the book, right?
Yes.
Or is it on the website?
No, I think a lot of the links are only in the books, and there's two, the mold fact sheet, mold investigation checklist, that are on the website, which is everybody's sign to go read the books. Go get the books on Amazon. Yeah.
So for our listeners, signing up on our email list, I'm not going to blow up your emails. It's usually every 2 weeks. Of course, on a holiday, you'll get an email from me. It's not. I was just complaining about this the other day. Like, I get so much junk mail.
Yeah, and it's not junk, it's education.
No,
if you don't want to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars unnecessarily, you will get on Steve's list so you can learn what you need before you actually have to buy it.
Exactly. All right. We appreciate all you listeners. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you're concerned about toxic mold and the health of your home, mycotoxin testing could be your next step. Visit CNC Contractor Services to discover how easy it is to test for harmful mycotoxins, compounds released by toxic molds. These comprehensive testing kits can help you identify hidden threats in your air, dust, and surfaces. When you purchase mycotoxin testing from Steve Worsley, you can also opt to get expert testing and interpretation directly from Steve. Take control of your indoor air quality today. Check out mycotoxin testing at cnccontractorservices.com.